ただいまより WAW2017 特別
Now let's begin the special event of WAW 2017. First of all, please welcome the Prime Minister of Japan, Shinzo Abe, and also special guests, the Presidential Advisor, Ms. Ivanka Trump. Come into the room. Please welcome them with a round of applause. Without further ado, we would like to have remarks from Prime Minister Abe. Please take the floor. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Japan. As the Prime Minister of Japan, I cordially welcome all of you to the country. Just last month, we had general elections. Well, I was not sure whether I could really come to the conference or not, but the appointment as a Prime Minister at the Diet just the day before yesterday, now I am here as a Prime Minister of Japan. So, with the new cabinet started functioning, now this is the first international conference, the WOW. You would understand that how serious I am committed to the women's empowerment. Well, to tell you the truth, the date for the conference itself has been decided quite a long time ago, so it is a result of serendipity. However, when it comes to politics, intuition plays most important. So it's almost like we predicted the timing and set the conference. And I think this is a strong commitment to the women's empowerment in myself. Well, this is the fourth time of WOW. Looking at you from the stage, you are shining, or you are even dazzling with energies, so that the participants' passion and enthusiasm are growing every year. The international conference, which draws so many distinguished and leading women, can be held in Japan. And I really feel that Japan has come a long way. Over 30 years ago, I was working in New York as a company employee. I was surprised to see American businesswomen were working proudly and equally against the male counterparts. The memory is still vividly with me. And at the time, right after that, I moved to political world, and I never imagined that the male-oriented Japanese society would be like the United States. Just 10 years ago, the percentage of working women younger than 64-year-old was lower than that of the United States in every generation, and that was the reality. However, when I became Prime Minister 5 years ago, I set the woman empowerment as a core of my growth strategy of Japan. We tried our best to make working environment friendly for women by implementing measures such as child care facility increase among others. As a result of that, 1.5 million women started working additionally, especially child-rearing generation rate increased by 5%. And so-called M-curve issue is on the course of disappearance. And finally, last year, all generations older than 25-year-old women's working ratio surpassed that of the United States. I am very much moved to learn that the US and Japan, the two societies so wide apart 30 years ago, are now on the equal basis. Japan has changed. We can change our society. The number of female executives has doubled last 5 years. I personally asked business to increase the female executives. They responded by changing rules, mandating financial reports to show number of female executives and their ratio against male counterparts. which resulted in a dramatic change of behavior of companies. And as you know now, Japanese corporations are enjoying record high profits. Womenomics drives Japan's economic growth. Japan has changed. Therefore, we are able to change the world too. The, the doctor who brought innovation into the medicine by successful transplant of iPS-derived retina cells into eye of a patient for the first time in the world is Japanese woman. Dr. Masayo Takahashi has been helping her patient for a long time as ophthalmologist. Her partner is neurosurgeons researching regenerative medicine. She connected these two different areas of medicine beautifully by challenging retina creation from iPS cells. New things exist in between the things, she says. Ophthalmologists do not know the frontier research of regenerative medicine, and the researchers in regenerative medicine don't know how important of retina treatment in the ophthalmology. Dr. Takahashi brought innovation in between two existing research domains. At the beginning, male doctors around her did not realize at all about the possibility of her research. Men tend to be shackled by traditional common sense. I believe that women have a power to break the common sense created by men and trailblaze the new era. I think it is true for the businesses. With the woman's unique sensitivity, women can create new business to solve social issues. With new perspective, women can create new values. Female entrepreneurs have full potential in bringing breakthroughs in low-growth economies and bring the world to the whole new level. A young woman is about to innovate the agriculture on the Cambodian soil. Ms. Brimpoti started as NGO member who tackles the poverty issue by supporting poor farmers in Cambodia. However, NGO activities has to be dependent on donors' finance. So, Lim-san decided to participate the entrepreneurs seminar organized by JICA in Cambodia. She learned about marketing, financial management, and created a home business. Her business is to buy organic vegetables and fruits from 30-plus Cambodian farmers and sell them to the consumers. With stable distribution channel established, now some of the farmers' children can start going to school. Some even built a new house. New business started by Rim-san, now contributing to eradicate the poverty in Cambodia. I'm happy that I can contribute to the society by doing my favorite work, says Rim-san. The challenge of the female entrepreneurs has a great potential to change the economy and also the world. And I think Ms. Ivanka Trump, who is here with us, probably agree with the notion. As a businesswoman, as a trusted advisor to President Trump, Ivanka-san took an initiative in establishing Women's Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative at this year's G20 Hamburg. Japan strongly supports this initiative and decided to be the largest finance contributor by pledging $50 million. We help women expand their network to all over the world. And when women stand up to their potential, then all over the world, many global issues can be solved someday. Japan will hold up the flag of women's empowerment high to lead the campaign in the world. As you know, iPhone came into the world 10 years ago, and now 1 billion of them are used by the people. Who could imagine this great success of iPhone 10 years ago? In 10 years, we can change the world. You may not even need 10 years. I strongly believe that we can realize the societies in which all women can shine and trailblaze new era all over the world. And I remember Steve Jobs' words. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. People who gathered here are all believers that I can change the world. Everyone, let's change the world together. And I am looking forward to seeing you again in this WAW next year. Thank you very much for your participation.
Abe 総理ありがとうございます。
Prime Minister Abe, thank you very much. Next, I would like to invite Ms. Ivanka Trump, advisor to the President, to the podium.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Abe, for that kind introduction. And thank you for your gracious hospitality to my family. This is my first visit to Japan, and the warmth you have shown us, the beauty of your landscape, and the vibrancy of your culture are truly incredible gifts to all who come to this country. Yesterday evening, as I arrived in Tokyo, I was struck by the magnificence of the skyline, and this morning, I was awed by the ancient beauty of the Imperial Palace. The wonders of this land are a testament to the creativity and the resilience of the Japanese people. It is an honor to join you today at the World Assembly for Women. I'm grateful to be with this exceptional and passionate group of leaders to discuss the economic empowerment of women, to celebrate the progress our societies have made, and to chart a bold course for the future. The economic empowerment of women has been a focus of mine for many years. Ensuring that 50% of our population can fully participate in the workforce is critical to strengthening our communities and growing our prosperity. That is why, after my father's election, I decided to leave my businesses and work in government to advance policies and initiatives that empower women to fully participate in the economy if they so choose. Policies that enable women to pursue their careers and care for their families. Policies that focus on workforce development and skills training, and policies that fuel entrepreneurship so that Americans can turn their aspirations into their incredible legacies. Our societies are at a critical juncture, a moment of great challenge and opportunity. Over the last half-century, women have entered every imaginable field, reached the highest levels of management, and are now leading some of the largest companies in the world. We have discovered life-saving medical cures, traveled to space, and created transformative technologies. The women here today represent this historic achievement and shine the light towards an even brighter future. Here in Japan, 4 decades ago, 45% of women worked outside of the home. Today, 66% of working-age women are in the workforce, a significant improvement and one I know will only continue to grow in great measure due to Prime Minister Abe's vision for Japan. At the very heart of this vision, Abenomics, is womenomics. Womenomics recognizes the centrality of women who represent roughly half of our global population in achieving true economic growth. Women who are empowered to work, to thrive, and to lead bring immense creativity, fresh perspective, and success to our economy and to the world. When women work, it creates a unique multiplier effect. Women are more likely than men to hire other women, to give them access to capital, mentorship, and networks. Women have been shown to invest 90% of their income in their homes and communities and tend to allocate more of their funds to food, healthcare, and education, resources that benefit children and improve our societies for generations. When women work, they not only support themselves, but they create a better future for their families and their communities. Currently, an estimated 49% of women across the world participate in the global workforce. If women close the gap with men in all aspects of work and society, it could add trillions to our annual global GDP over the next decade. I deeply respect and honor women who choose to work inside the home full-time to care for their families. We never want to discourage that incredible calling, but we must also ensure that every woman has the freedom to work outside of the home if they so choose. Therefore, in order to empower women to reach our full economic potential, we must embrace 4 fundamental changes that will propel us into the future. First, as leaders in both business and government, we must pave the way in modernizing the workplace. While the percentage of working women has dramatically increased, corporate expectations have remained all too stagnant. In the United States, women now comprise 47% of the workforce. In the vast majority of American homes with children, all parents work. And in 40% of households, women are the primary breadwinners. Yet work environments and social institutions still largely operate on a single earner mindset, in which one parent, traditionally the mother, stays at home to provide full-time care. All too often, our workplace culture fails to treat women with appropriate respect. This takes many forms, including harassment, which can never be tolerated. Traditional and rigid business culture also fails working mothers and fathers who work long and often wildly unpredictable hours and get little time off. Too many mothers dread telling their boss that they must stay at home to take care of a sick child, and many must go back to work just weeks after having a baby because they can't afford not to. Every day, working parents are forced to make hard but unavoidable choices. I joined government informed by my experiences in the private sector, having been both an executive leading an international real estate business and an entrepreneur who built a successful brand in an entirely different industry. As a professional with 3 young children, despite the help that I am able to have at home, I too experience the struggles of balancing the competing demands of work and family. I, however, am far more fortunate than most. Because of the opportunities I've been afforded my whole life, I felt an obligation to seize this moment and join the administration. I saw a chance to help fuel the number of women-owned businesses and grow our economy. I saw a chance to work on behalf of girls in rural communities and inner cities who, by learning to code or studying robotics, could secure good-paying jobs in our modern economy. I saw a chance to go for bat for the woman who faced the choice of staying at home with a sick child or reporting to work at a job that might otherwise fire her. Our workplaces and our public policies must mirror our values, work and family. It is time for our societies to find new and innovative ways to make it easier for women to experience the joy of motherhood without facing major career setbacks. This isn't a woman's issue, it's a family issue. Yet it disproportionately impacts women who are the most likely to leave the workforce or curtail our ambitions because we have no access to affordable care for our children and our adult dependents. Still, in the developed world, we are slowly seeing a movement towards a more equal distribution of responsibility in our homes. Young fathers are increasingly contributing to the housework and helping raise their children. We have an incredible opportunity to adapt our workplaces to this modern reality. Today, we can answer an email in the palm of our hand, take a call almost anywhere around the globe, work flexible hours in the gig economy, and finish our work at home once we put our kids to bed. The last decade has revolutionized the way we work, and now has the potential to deliver more flexibility, to more working women. Already, we are seeing increased numbers of women leaving behind outdated work environments to start their own businesses from their kitchen tables. Today, women entrepreneurs are flourishing. Fortunately, the private sector is recognizing the importance of modernizing the workplace. Businesses are instituting policies such as flex time and paid leave, in part to attract and retain female talent. Companies that have women on their boards generate a higher return on equity than those that do not, and outperform in times of crisis or volatility. Integrating and empowering women is not just good corporate policy, it's good business. Second, in addition to changing the corporate culture, we must also advance public policies that address the composition of our modern workforce. In the United States, while single women without children make 95 cents for each dollar earned by a man, married mothers make only 81 cents. Too many women in the United States are forced to leave the workforce following the birth of a child. We must ensure that federal policies support working mothers and enable them to reach their full potential. This is how we can create an environment where closely bonded families can flourish and our economy can grow at unprecedented levels. This is why in the United States, we are working to pass sweeping and long overdue tax reform that will afford families much needed relief. We seek to simplify the tax code, lower rates, expand the child tax credit, eliminate the marriage penalty, and put more money back in the pockets of hardworking Americans. Our administration is working to address the high cost of childcare in the United States, which currently outstrips housing expenses and state college tuition in much of the country. It simply cannot be too expensive for the modern working family to have children. I applaud Prime Minister Abe for expanding paid family leave here in Japan, an important step in addressing the modern challenge of working families and maintaining women's attachment to the workforce. This year, in the United States, for the first time ever, the President's budget included a proposal to establish a nationwide paid family leave program. We know that this will take time, but we are deeply committed to working with members of Congress on both sides of the aisle to get it done and deliver more pro-family solutions to hardworking Americans. Third, in this age of rapid technology, we must confront the challenges of workforce development. It is critical that as we look towards the future, we don't allow women in the United States and around the world to be left behind by the fourth industrial revolution. A revolution that's integrating robotics, computer programming, artificial intelligence, social media, and cutting-edge technologies into every aspect of society. As technology transforms every industry, we must work to ensure that women have access to the same education and industry opportunities as men. Female participation in STEM fields is moving in the wrong direction. Women today represent only 13% of engineers and 24% of computer science professionals, down from 35% in 1990. We must create equal participation in these traditionally male-dominated sectors of our economy, which are among the fastest growing and most lucrative industries in the world. Over the coming decades, technologies such as automation and robotics will transform the way we work, and we want to make sure that women can lead in the economy of the future. Otherwise, not only will we fail in closing the persistent gender wage gap, we will risk reversing the hard-fought progress we have made to date in this fight. Several months ago, the Trump administration instructed the Department of Education to prioritize STEM education, especially computer science, in our schools. The guidance that we offered directed that these programs be designed with gender and racial diversity in mind. At the direction of the President, I've worked closely with leadership across government agencies to prioritize workforce development and proven on-the-job training programs like apprenticeships so that young women and men have more opportunities to earn while they learn, provide for their families, and master the skills that drive progress in the 21st century. Finally, we must empower women who live in countries that prevent them from leading. Across the world, there are still laws that stop women from fully participating in their nation's economy. In some countries, women are not allowed to own property, travel freely, or work outside of the home without the consent of their husbands. Countries like the United States and Japan cannot be complacent. We must continue to champion reforms in our own countries while also empowering women in restricted economies. That is why this summer at the G20 conference, the United States and Japan were founding members of a bold new initiative with the World Bank, the Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative. This facility is the first of its kind to empower women entrepreneurs in developing countries. It will provide access to the capital, networks, and mentorship needed to thrive and will dramatically impact the ecosystem of women's entrepreneurship globally. And we're just getting started. As we gather in Tokyo today, I can't help but think of some of the great women pioneers in this country who have inspired our generation. Women like Yoshiko Shinohara. She survived World War II, started as a secretary, and went on to open a small business in her one-bedroom apartment. Her company grew into a world-renowned business in over a dozen countries. Today, as you all know, Yoshito is Japan's first female self-made billionaire. Now she helps young people afford the education they need to pursue their dreams and contribute to society. Because of pioneers like Yoshito, women in this country and around the world aspire to greater feats, climb to higher positions, and pave new pathways forward. Today, we are redefining success. We're discarding the old formula of the ideal woman, the ideal worker, the ideal mother. We are helping to shape a more realistic and complete picture of what it is to be a woman who thrives and who helps her business, community, and family do the same. The fact is, all women are working women, whether they make the commute each morning or spend the day with their children at home, or some combination of both. Truth be told, on Sunday nights, after a messy and wonderful weekend with my young children, I am far more exhausted than on Friday evenings after a long week of work at the office. Very true. I deeply admire women who choose to work inside the home, raising their families, and respect this decision. Eliminating or easing legal and cultural barriers so that more parents can make the choices that are right for their families is a core mission for our generation. We don't label men working men, and it is my hope that by the time my daughter Arabella grows into a woman, she will not be defined by whether she works inside or outside the home. She will simply be a woman, afforded the same opportunities as her male peers, and equipped with the education and support she needs to fulfill her unique potential. This is how I believe we will empower women, and in so doing, enable them to raise confident, empathetic, and ambitious sons and daughters, to propel unprecedented growth and job creation, and to cultivate a society that embraces the fullness of life, the dignity of work, the gift of strong and flourishing families. So today, I hope you will join me in imagining this future and working together to make it a reality for our children, for our nations, and for a hope of a more vibrant and inclusive economy. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. トランプ補佐官、ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much, Presidential Advisor Ms. Trump.
ここで安倍総理。
Now, Prime Minister Abe and Presidential Advisor Ms. Trump are leaving the room. Please give them a round of applause.
皆様、お待たせいたし。
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. Now, we'd like to invite the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Kono, will be giving you a keynote speech.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is a final event of WAW 2017, which we have held every year since 2014. Thanks to your insights and thought-provoking discussion, this has been, once again, an extraordinary forum for women's empowerment. Thank you very much. And now to our event on women entrepreneurs. A positive consequence of the rapidly changing world that I discussed yesterday is that more and more women are launching businesses. I would like to disseminate once again the message that they bring new viewpoint and ideas to the world marketplace and outline Japan's support for such wonderfully talented women entrepreneurs around the world. I would like to introduce you to two Japanese women entrepreneurs on our panel today, Ms. Rika Yajima and Ms. Kaori Sasaki, who have brought their unique perspectives to their own business ventures. Ms. Yajima is putting a modern twist on a centuries-old Japanese tradition to ensure it is handed down to future generations. Edo sarasa is a 16th century close-dyeing technique from the Tokyo region that is used for making kimonos, which are traditional Japanese robes. However, Japanese nowadays do not wear kimonos so much. So Ms. Yajima makes aprons for infants using organic cotton close-dyed with Edo sarasa technique. Ms. Yajima has received high marks for her business model during APEC last month. Ms. Sasaki established a translation agency in 1987. Since then, she has been doing various activities in the field of human resource and products development from the viewpoint of working women. Recently, she partnered with a food company to create powder salad dressing with toppings. The idea was triggered by listening to working women who said they would like to eat more vegetable easily and keep good nutritional balance among their busy daily lives at the office and home. Both of these entrepreneurs have created the businesses with viewpoints unique to women. I think that creating products to meet a need in daily life that has not yet been met is one of women's great strengths. However, it is still difficult for women to launch their own business. The percentage of women entrepreneurs in Japan is roughly 30%. It is said that women face many obstacles when they try to launch businesses in Japan. Acquiring professional knowledge on business and management is one of such obstacles. Moreover, women feel difficulties when they try to have access to loans for their business. The situation for women in developing countries is much severer. The government of Japan wants to tear down these obstacles, which is one of the main reasons we support Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, WIFI, which was launched at the G20 summit in Hamburg in July of this year. WIFI is an initiative established in the World Bank to help women entrepreneurs and women-led small and medium enterprises in developing countries to overcome obstacles to success. Ms. Ivanka Trump, advisor to the President of the United States, contributed to the launch of the initiative. Japan will support WIFI as much as possible so that the initiative can run smoothly and help women around the world reach their full potential. It is not easy to change the way of thinking and concept of values of all people. However, we are committed to working on a local and global scale to overcome obstacles to women entrepreneurs and greater empowerment. Thank you very much.
河野大臣ありがとうございました。河野
Minister Kono, thank you very much. Women who are so closely intertwined in day-to-day life has a very much strength in everything she does. And also WAW's contribution to women entrepreneurs were mentioned in his speech. Thank you very much. Now, moving on to the next speaker, we would like to invite Ms. Christiana Georgieva, CEO of the World Bank, to the podium.
Very much. Your Excellency, Foreign Minister Taro Kono, it is a great honor to take the floor after you and after the opening session by Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and Ivanka Trump. My institution, the World Bank, is greatly honored to be the home of WAW. And may I say, we are committed to make WAW as important and popular as Wi-Fi. From the bottom of my heart, I would like to congratulate Japan for bringing us together for the World Assembly for Women. It is important for Japan, it is important for the whole world that we make progress in the area of gender equality. And I cannot think of more appropriate topic for the closing session of WAW 2017 than women entrepreneurship. To end on a high note, talking about women as stewards of our economies, as those who create jobs for others, who generate income for their families and for others. And we know that to do so, women entrepreneurs ought to overcome barriers that men entrepreneurs face and more. At the World Bank, we have a flagship publication called Doing Business. We actually just launched the 15th edition of Doing Business. We complement it with a very special product called Women, Business and the Law. And what we find is that these barriers to women entrepreneurs are very significant and widespread. For example, married women cannot inherit property as married men would do in 35 countries. In 17 countries, married women cannot travel outside of their home without permission and without being accompanied by male escorts. And very significantly, only in 47 out of 189 economies, the laws prohibit discrimination based on gender in terms of access to credit. So it would come as no surprise that while it is difficult for all entrepreneurs starting a business to get access to credit, it is excruciatingly difficult for women to do so. We have estimated the gap in access to finance for women to be around $300 billion. What can we do and what do we do to bridge this gap? First, in our work on financial inclusion, we have prioritized gender equality. Today, there are 2 billion people on this planet that are not connected to banking services. They don't have accounts. And the proportion of women, of course, in this 2 billion is higher. Some 60+% are women. If we don't specifically target financial inclusion for women, it is very likely that we would be reducing the entrepreneurial capacity of half of the world's population. So we have made a commitment at the World Bank to universal financial access by 2020, closing the gap for these 2 billion people. We have gotten down on this trajectory already. Within this target, the attention to access for women is our priority. In fintech, in digital banking, we see an incredible pickup of women taking advantage of mobile technology to open accounts and then turn them into entrepreneurs. And I would tell you one of my favorite stories. I heard it from a woman from Bangladesh who works in a textile factory. And she says the following: before having her digital banking account, on the day of pay, her mother-in-law would wait outside of the gate of the factory and take her money. Now she has a digital account, her salary goes straight into it, she saved, and she turned into an entrepreneur opening up her own business. The second very important action we take is to work with the financial sector to be mindful of the difficulties for women and remove barriers for them. For example, in Kenya, only 1% of women have property. But if you don't have property, it is very difficult to get credit because you have no collateral to offer. We worked with the financial institutions in Kenya to create collateral from what women do have: their jewelry, animals, and most importantly, others who can vouch for them, guarantors for credit. With $15,000 in hands, women can turn from job seekers into job providers. And I can tell you, it is incredible to see how good women can be in business given a chance. I met a woman from Myanmar, Win Tint. At 21, she got to run a small supermarket. And now she has a retail company, 200 shops. She employs 8,500 men and women in her shops. And more important than anything else, she is a mentor of other women so they can succeed. Let me go to the third and very important topic of what we do, and this is Wi-Fi. The most important message is to echo what we heard from Ivanka Trump. We are open for business. We have $340 million, of which Japan's very generous contribution of 50 million is one of the first to put us on the right track. With this money, we can provide blended finance to women-owned SMEs in all borrowing members of the World Bank. We have made a conscious choice to aim to serve the poorest the most. We want at least 50% of our target of $1 billion to go into low-income countries, and especially in fragile countries. We have just had our first governing council on October 12th, and we are going to approve the first proposals early into the next year. So I see in the audience women from all parts of the world. Those of you who come from borrowing members of the World Bank, don't hesitate. Look for this opportunity to boost your business. Let me finish with the following. Over the last 3 days, I had the incredible privilege to meet senior Japanese women from business, from civil society, from academia, and we were talking about our life stories, women my age. And what we found common for all of us is that we all had to work harder than men in our lives to be equal. For my daughter and for my granddaughter, from the bottom of my heart, I wish that they would be equal just because they are. Thank you very much.
ゲオルギエバ CEO ありがとうございました。
Thank you very much, Georgieva, CEO. The challenges of the women who want to be entrepreneurs and those issues are tackled by the World Bank. They are not just to support their own lives, but also they can be the provider of the jobs. And this initiative has begun in full-fledged manner from October. We sincerely wish for the success of the initiative. Now moving on to the panel discussion. All right. The advisor Trump and also the World Bank Georgieva CEO and also Foreign Minister Kono all mentioned there are so many obstacles for the woman who wish to start her own businesses. Not many advisors are coming to their help, and very difficult to get the loans, and also sometimes difficult to get the understanding among themselves. So today, we will be talking about how the women establish their own businesses. We have invited some of the successful women entrepreneurs to share their experience.
それではパネルの
Now, I would like to introduce today's panelists. From Indonesia, Ms. Sisi Pudiastri, Minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. Ms. Kaori Sasaki, founder and CEO of eWomen and also CEO of Unical. From Korea, Ms. Mi Yeon Lee, CEO of Fair Trade Korea. And from Democratic Republic of Congo, Ms. Patricia Beringa Gisques, the founder and CEO of the Job Factory. And Nena Stojkovic. She is from Serbia, Vice President and International Finance Corporation. And Ms. Rika Yajima, founder and CEO of AEL Corporation. And the moderator for this panel discussion is Ms. Cassie Matsui, Vice Chair at Goldman Sachs Japan Corporation Limited. Now, Ms. Matsui, please take the floor. Thank you very much for your introduction, and good morning, everyone.
Today's panel discussion is titled Supporting Women Entrepreneurs. I think you heard that theme very strongly with the speeches this morning. And if you just kind of take a step back for a moment and think about what you've been reading in the news for the past weeks, months, years about the world and the state of the world. We hear about terrorism, famine, populism, widening gaps between the rich and the poor. And I often think to myself, you know, is there one like magic bullet that can erase and solve many of the world's challenges? And I frankly think we found it. I think that magic or silver bullet is in women like you see right up here on the stage. I work in the world of finance. We like numbers. We believe that investing in women is by far the highest return on investment one can make in this world. According to our own Goldman Sachs research and that of others, we know that if you can close the gender employment gap in developed countries, we could boost the level of GDP by as much as 12%. And in many developing countries, Egypt, Turkey, etc., you could boost that even further by, in some cases, 20% or more. So I think it is pretty obvious to me that this is the solution. But of course, if it's so obvious a solution, then why haven't we come that far? So today I'm joined with a distinguished group of women, very powerful. We're going to first allow them to each introduce themselves, and then we're going to go into a bit of a discussion, a conversation with each of them. Some of them, or many of them, are entrepreneurs in their own rights, and some of them work in the government, and some of them, like Susie does, or has done both. So we're going to start first with Susie to my direct left, and I'm going to give it a punchline away, but I'm going to tell a little bit of a tidbit for each of the speakers. Susie has a helicopter pilot license, and she likes to paddleboard. But take it away, Susie. Just a quick 2-minute, we've got to keep it short, 2-minute self-introduction and what you do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy, and good morning, everybody. So it's an honor for me to be here, and I think 2 days ago I already been introduced. So at the moment I'm having post as a Minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries in Indonesia, taking care of the second largest coastal line in Indonesia. But before, I had been running my own company since I was 17. I decided to quit my high school. I feel I'm not suitable for the school system. Not that school, not suitable for me, but more me, not suitable for the school system. So I decided on my own to quit my school and do things on my own way. And I started my business on small trade in a small town with $75. And for 30 years, I was running seafood exporter to Japan and also to Europe, a little bit to United States. And since 2004, I started my small commuter service, Suzy Air. So the company is flying around Indonesia in the remote area. So basically connect the remote area to the secondary city. And the last 3 years, I had been running my job for the first time as a government officer, Minister for Marine Affairs and Fisheries. And I did, in the last 3 years, a big work on combat the IUU fishing, illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing. I might know some of you is already familiar with, so very happy that the work on combating IUU fishing had been reflect very good numbers on Indonesian growth on fisheries. Our stock increase of 100% almost from 6.5 million ton to 12.5 million ton. For the first time, the balanced trade of fisheries product of Indonesia in Southeast Asia are #1. Before and always #3. So increase the GDP of fisheries, household fisheries, businesses competitiveness also increased from 10 to 20%. Now we are moving into reforming Indonesia to more sustainable management in fisheries. And that's all, I think, Kathy. So more later. I wait for your questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So Sasaki-san, would you like to introduce yourself? And Sasaki-san, those of you, of course, know her. She's very famous in Japan, but she's also an amazing gospel singer.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. That I started my first business is about 30 years ago. But before that, I started working when I was a first grade of high school. And to earn my spendings of the month. And also, actually, I started making money since then to pay the tuition of the university and so forth. So since the first year of high school, I haven't gotten any financial support from my parents. I've been independent since then. So I was kind of like really working life. And my first company I established is 30 years ago, which is Unical International Translation Interpretation Company, which we celebrated again 30th anniversary. Also, in 1996, I started the very first website for women in Japan, bilingual English and Japanese, and that was a really first website for women. And at the same year, I started the International Conference for Women in Business, which now we just celebrated the 22nd year of the conference, which is the largest working women conference in Japan. More than 1,000 women and men get together every year in the summer. In year 2000, after my second baby was born, I started the second company, which is called eWoman. eWoman is a company that we believe that the creating innovation through a diversity point of view. So the one is that kindly that the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Kono-san, just mentioned that the powder salad, or so that we work with the companies, and also we create something, some product ourselves, and we do the human development as well. So I'm taking care of 2 kids and 1 elderly mother, and sing gospel with women executives. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Next is Myung Lee, who hails from Korea. She is the CEO of Fairtrade Korea, and I believe she's going to speak in Korean, so unless you speak Korean, use your headset for translation. Go ahead. And she likes to
sorry, I will try
travel.
English. Yes. Sorry, hello, everyone. My name is
sorry, she's going
Myung Lee.
to speak in English.
I'm a CEO of Fairtrade Korea. It's such a great honor for me to participate in the meaningful conference. Let me introduce our company. Fairtrade Korea was founded as the first fair trade social enterprise in Korea. We aim to address the women's poverty and support self-reliance of them in developing countries. In contrast to commercial company, social enterprise wanna solve social problem that has failed in public and market through business. Therefore, it aims to create social value as well as financial performance in order to support self-reliance of women living in developing countries. We are focusing on handicraft because handicraft has a business feasibility as women can start it with comparably small amount of capital. At present, we have a strong business partnership with 25 producer groups in 5 countries and sales over 500 types of products. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Patricia Veringa-Gisques. She comes probably the farthest, maybe distance, from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And she told me that she enjoys cooking and she can sleep anywhere. So maybe you're part Japanese. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Thank you very much. It's a pity that Prime Minister Abe is not here anymore, but really my first address was actually to him before introducing myself, because I don't think that people really realize how amazing it is what he has done with the WAW. It is my second participation at the WAW, and well, first as a panelist, and I truly believe that it is really a gift. It is just amazing that a Prime Minister as well, not a woman, a Minister of Gender or Equality or whatever, that the Prime Minister has decided to actually bring up such a project. And I just think that is amazing, really.
We are very lucky.
And I really, really salute this because it's just amazing. Okay, talking about me, well, I come from the Democratic Republic of Congo, indeed, Kinshasa. Very big Kinshasa, wonderful place to be. Emerging country, it's a fact. 11 years ago, I started a company called The Job Factory. Basically, we do recruitment. And a few years later, we started doing vocational training because basically we couldn't really place people due to the very poor level of education, let's say. So that's how we started the vocational training, being certified and so on. In the meantime, I'm also on board of the employers organization. And I must say that I'm very happy to say that we actually have more women on board than the Kendaren here. And when I came in 2015 at the WAW, I don't have her name, but she was nominated as the first time for a woman to be on board of the Kendaren in Japan. While in DRC, we had 3 women. It's not many more, but we had 3 women on board. And I'm also on board of States Company. And yes, I am an entrepreneur. I must say that I feel that I'm doing a bit more politics than entrepreneurship at the moment because of being on the board of the private sector and running the commission that I run. It's basically, I'm the interface with government. And I'm very proud to even say that last week, before just taking my plane, I was able to pass a bill on, which is not normal for the private sector, but I was able to pass a bill on hiring the minimum wage, you see. Wonderful. So, and I had a word from the minister WhatsApping me as I was here saying, you are really the actor of the revolution that's happening, so you see. So that's
wonderful, congratulations.
Thank you.
Next is Nena Stojkovic. Nena is the Vice President of the International Finance Corporation, IFC. She's originally from Serbia, and she told me that she enjoys skiing and watching tennis, not necessarily playing tennis. But Nena?
Correct. Thank you, Kathy. Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here, and because this is the last session of the summit, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank our hosts, Japanese government, and in particular the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for hosting us here, for giving us such a phenomenal opportunity to engage, and also for bringing so much energy to women equality and women issues. As Kathy mentioned, I am a vice president in IFC, private sector arm of the World Bank group, and I oversee some innovative financial instruments. We call these instruments blended finance instruments that can help de-risk private sector operations in emerging markets and clearly can benefit women. I also oversee IFC's advisory services where we host our gender work. Given that IFC has a global presence in more than 100 countries in the world and that we work across a number of sectors, our focus on women and women issues goes beyond women entrepreneurs. And I just wanted to mention that, although I know that we will be focusing more on the women in business. In addition to entrepreneurs, we also focus on women employees, women as leaders, women in communities, and women as consumers. Around 10 years ago, IFC recognized the opportunity that investing in women is good for business and started using its network, large network of private clients globally to promote the cause and support women across these 5 segments that I mentioned. And we established something that we call banking on women, which allowed us over the last 10 years to support women entrepreneurs, now I'm talking about entrepreneurs, with $1.6 billion of financing, and this included also advisory services to build their capacity. So we reached more than 100,000 women through our Banking on Women program, and what you just heard about WAW is an extension of what we have done over the last 10 years, and I would be happy to touch on how WAW is special and how it will allow us, with the generous support of the Japanese government, to take it to the next level.
Wonderful, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Yajima-san. As you can see in her beautiful kimono, Yajima-san is an expert in the traditional crafts of Japan, and she loves to do herself flower arranging and tea ceremony. But dozo, Yajima-san.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. As was being introduced, I am Rika Yajima, founder and CEO of Aeru company. When I was the 4th grader of university, I created this company called Aeru company. Can you imagine the Chinese character that expresses Aeru? It's WA, or WA stands for peace. And then I put Eru at the end of WA, that is to mix something. The wisdom of tradition and our sense of modern days, we mix them together and to derive beauty of both between tradition and the modern way of thinking, so that we can actually keep the tradition alive in this modern world. I was hoping to become a journalist when I joined university, or when I entered university, but I was one of the university students who really love Japan. Have you ever think about your country so deeply? And have you ever thought of your nationality so deeply? I think the tradition is indeed the reason why I am a Japanese and why Japan is like this. I can dress kimono and I do flower arrangement and the tea ceremony, but these are kind of acquired technique that I taught myself. But the modern young generation nowadays cannot wear kimono by themselves, and they are not so well versed with their own tradition. And we have an environment in which we can grow into adults without knowing our traditions. But as the minister mentioned, there was an APEC side event in September, APEC Best Award. That is a business award giving ceremony. 1 candidates per country were selected among women business women into this APEC award. I was able to get the best award and the best social impact award at the same time. And
I'm talking about my own initiative because these very good old traditions start disappearing from their nations. We really have to think of how to really succeed these traditions to the next generation. And I think this succession of the tradition can be a solution to some of the challenges. So that's why I am currently producing the traditional product, which are for babies. So even when they were baby, they encounter with Japanese culture. And this business model was awarded as a best award because they recognized that this tradition maintenance is very important for other countries too. I was originally a journalist. I was raised in Japan, but still I don't know much about Japan. So as a journalist, I have to tell the tradition to babies and children, but they can't read and they cannot even understand so well. So through objects, we can tell the tradition. And journalism can be in the object. So I was looking for where to start working with Japanese craftsmen. We can manufacture something to tell the tradition for babies, but I couldn't find any company. So I encountered with something that I really want to do it for the rest of my life, but I couldn't find a company, so I decided to create my own company. Some people ask me that you are courageous enough to start a business, but no, I just couldn't give up on my dream, so that's why I had to make my own business. But as Prime Minister suggested, it is very lucky for me to be in this era because we have opportunity to start our own business because banks and then financial institutions can give us loan for young girls. So we have to make sure that we do understand that Japan is a country where financial institution can provide the credit and also loan for young girls.
Very successful entrepreneurial women from the region and around the world. But obviously the paths to reaching where they are today was not a smooth or easy one. I am certain that all of them faced a myriad of difficult obstacles with their personal life and challenges and in the business world. So I'd like to ask each of them, what are the barriers that you experienced when you were starting out your business? And if you could turn back the clock, what would you have liked to have seen or had at that time that would have facilitated an easier launch? Susie, do you want to begin?
What I see is the beginning when I start my company is the financing. Almost the first level where you just, as a startup, is very difficult to get finance. Once you're big, the bank is looking for you. But when you're small, when you desperate need the support, nobody come. And one of the problem normal entrepreneur when they start, I come from a very small village and doing things that's not yet common. So, and that's also another obstacle. So, but again, as what I said yesterday, I did not really like to do things that so many people do because I feel a bit hesitate to have competition. So I don't like competitions. I choose to look for a niche market, a niche sector that not many people doing it. But I do see what I had been struggle is also everybody's struggle. The way the finance supporting business is once you are big. And normally once you are in the business to keep survive, to sustain your survival, competitiveness and so on, you got to keep growing. Mm-hmm. Without finance support, it's impossible. So, and when you get bigger and it's open, but before you get the point of big company, it has to search the economy scale. And this is normally many, I see other entrepreneurs fell down, not only women, but also men, enterprise businessmen, is because they can't reach, as a small enterprises, SMA, it's okay, they run. And then once they come from the SMA to jump to the big level, that's the struggle point, very tough for many companies. So when you don't need financing yet, you still can survive. Mm-hmm. And then once you need the financing on certain medium level to the bigger level, that's many are failed because the banking or the finance institution did not support. But once you keep the economy scale level, the bank are coming to you, which actually you don't need because your resilience on surviving is also already different.
Right, right.
And this is, I don't know, egg or chicken first. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know, and I think this is the interventions of the government very important. Yep. I mean, I look myself, I had been very lucky at that time to grow big, to build my first factory, cold storage and thing. I got the financing from KfW. That is German's SMA support for efficiency and friendly environment. So I use the ammoniac as the refrigerator and the better technology on freezing facility for the seafood. So it's take less dehydrate the product, which is the gain of weight. That's actually the way I pay the loan. But if this is not coming, I think it's very tough for every business, small enterprises to lift up. I think that's what I can say.
Great. Kaori-san, what was the obstacle you faced that was...
What was the barrier? Well, because I did not have any big business plan or anything when I started my first business, so I didn't really encounter the barrier. The business was there. I was a freelance interpreter beforehand, and I then started my business so that the clients were there, so that the business was okay. I didn't really like bouncing to the barrier. However, actually that I experienced that somebody calling my office and then asking like, CEO please, president please. And I said, yes, speaking. And they said, wow, it's a woman. And then they hang up. Or one of the clients actually did use our translation service, but found out the president was a woman, then they said, well, this is a company of women, so we are not paying anything after receiving all the service. So I had to fight about it because I thought that if I just let them do, then this company will do the same thing for other women's company. So I encountered some of those like strange experience. However, I think that the highest barrier could be the mentality that when you encounter some of the problems, when you start thinking that, wow, this is because I'm a woman, meaning that you're giving it up unless you change your gender.
Your own mental barrier. There.
Right, so that I train myself that whatever the obstacles happens, it's nothing to do with the gender. It's just immaturity of myself. I could change this way, I could change my clothes, way of talking, way of presentation, then I conquer the thing. If we just start thinking that this is because of my gender, then just many of them just give up.
You can't move forward.
I think that mentality is one of the biggest obstacles.
Excellent. Myung, what were I know Korea is in some ways very similar to Japan, very tough environment for women and women entrepreneurs, but what are some of the barriers that you encountered?
저는 그 여성 기업가라고 하는 점과 더불어 이제 제가 하고 있는 사업이 일반 영리 기업과는 다른 뭔가 사회 문제를
Our business is to solve the social issues. From that perspective, I think that we have encountered many challenges. It is most important to have a good business plan and also finance, and also you need to have human capitals. In Korea, there are systems to support female entrepreneurs, but if you compare that size to male entrepreneurs, size of finance and also size of loan, we still had the problems.
Especially if I don't have any background or track record, I do not have any collateral to offer. And if I want to give any opportunities to women, there are cases where I cannot give because they don't have any collateral. So that's one point. Another point is that if women want to engage themselves in social business, back then there was no such thing as social business, and therefore there were no women around me with whom I can make networking. There was no role model to look to, and also when social company can create impact on the society, I was not able to share experience with others. But now in Korea, market is being innovated, and there are many more people who wish to bring innovation to the market. And also there are more people who start business, especially young women creating business in order to change the society for a cause of society. They are paying attention to niche market. It's been 10 years ever since I created my company. Entrepreneurs myself and young startups, we express themselves as social ventures, but the women of entrepreneurs of different generations can get together now and exchange opinions and share some resources as well. That's something we are now starting to see, which I think is a very meaningful thing. Ethical, sustainable fashion hub is something I want to create. 12 companies get together with their project and to create a hub. That's what I'm now doing. This is just started, but I think this is a significant work. ありがとうございます。ネットワーク
Particularly an issue for you. Thank you. Patricia, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the obstacles you faced?
Yes, interesting to hear what my colleagues on the panel said. Well, basically, when I started my career 27 years ago, I was in a developed country. I started my career in the Netherlands and then Belgium. And at the time, the challenge would have been the children, kindercare. You know, we spoke about it the past few days, and I spoke about it with the lady from UNICEF and so on. That was really a problem because I had 2 kids at a time, and I would bring them to work. But then when I became an entrepreneur, I was based in the DRC in Congo, and there the kindercare wasn't a problem. That wasn't a challenge. So I actually had 2 more kids. Wow. And I started my company being pregnant with my 4th child. And then the real challenge was actually finance, I would say. And I realized that, and that's what I was very happy to be on this panel to talk about finance. I spoke about it a bit with Lena before. It's amazing how we don't, sometimes in developed countries, we don't realize what that type of challenge is, basically, and whatever that the business plan is big or small, but it really is a challenge. And the way that I started my company, there's been no help at all. There was no finance, and of course the law also didn't allow. I think they've passed a law 2 years ago now that eventually women can borrow money. Well, they still need to have approval of the husband, but it's more flexible. Okay, yes, and but I believe that the main challenge is indeed, and it is really finance, and it's access to finance. It's not only laws, because we'd like to mention, and that's of course government has a role to play, but I truly believe that it's also accessing the finance, because we're here to talk about the finance. We have IFC, we have the Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi, whatever program, and we spoke about it yesterday with Lena, is that, okay, how will this be done? Because I always have the feeling, I travel a lot, lots of conferences, etc., and I discuss a lot with international organizations, especially the financial ones, and I believe that they should have more real entrepreneur women on board of these organizations, because it's not as we're going to be into figures as such, but we can actually tell exactly what works and doesn't work. You know, IFC has done a tremendous program in the DRC. They finance a bank. There is now a bank for women. There's one, because I'm actually the face of that bank. And, but at the same time, I'm the face of the bank, but I never got money from the bank, you see. So they're just using my face. And because access is really still a problem, all the criteria that you need, there's something that I often hear when we speak about finance and in emerging countries like Congo, like Africa, African countries, most of them are emerging countries, is always the risk, country risk. Goldman Sachs would know something about this. But I was saying to Lena yesterday, I say, what does that mean? Do you people think that because the country is eventually what it is, that people are not creating, that women are not entrepreneurs? Women are entrepreneurs, whatever the conditions, and I believe that the tougher the condition, the more entrepreneurial they become, because they need to find ways, they need to find solutions. So I believe that this type of term should be adapted, should be addressed. And I know it's finance and it's money and people need to be accountable for this, but at the same time, let us be realistic. If you put so many criteria, if you go through a bank to lend, a traditional bank to lend us money, then basically it means that it will not work. It will be certain that have collaterals that will be able, and we were talking about jewelries, but even jewelries, I mean, who would think of jewelry when you're basically from an emerging country and you've got so many challenges? I mean, women are feeding their families, are feeding themselves, are feeding the surrounding families, the community. So there are no jewelries, there's no land, there's no collateral at all. And well, in a week's time, I'll be in a different conference about SME and banking. And though I'm not a figure person as such, but it's to talk about the same, to say, what are your criteria? How do you come with this type of criteria? Because they are not realistic. And it basically leaves most of women on the side again. So that's what we need to think about it. The Minister of Indonesia said that the bank come to us when we don't need them anymore, you see.
The irony.
And I'm happy to have heard that the Wi-Fi program will actually give access to startups. But what is an entrepreneur? It's someone that starts with something. But up until today, I would say, they wouldn't borrow money to startups. But when you're an entrepreneur, it means you're starting something. So if you don't get the money at a time, then it's basically useless. And that is really a problem. That is a really, really, really problem that we're facing. And thank God is eventually being addressed with the Wi-Fi program. And well, we'd like to see it. But I told her, and she was telling me, email me straight when whatever. But please get the right woman on board. And I said on board. And don't ask for degrees, because we have the experience. We know exactly what it is to be on the field. So we will give ideas that will make sure the program actually makes sense. Otherwise, it's just another program. It's just some money given, and we will read about that there are millions for women somewhere. But at the same time, all of us women don't even see it. And I'm a very privileged one, or I became a privileged one, because today, of course, my company is in different countries and whatever, but I've done all of this with no help. And I know, I don't know which financial institute told me, oh, this is just so great. I was actually responding to a tender, and they told me, oh, that is so great because you have no debt. Yeah, but having no debts means that it took me a very long time to get where I am, because I have no debts. Right. Today it looks wonderful, but at the same time, it hindered me from being big as I wanted, you see. So I believe that is really a problem, the criteria, the way things are done to make sure we really get access to that money.
So this sets the stage for Nena, who is going to hopefully address some of the questions I guess you must get asked about how is Wi-Fi, that initiative, different from all the other initiatives, and how is that going to help people like Patricia?
Thank you, Kathy. And I also wanted still to stay on the issue of barriers, because we see it in so many countries by dealing with so many entrepreneurs. And I appreciate what the individual entrepreneurs have faced, but I just wanted to maybe provide a bit of an aggregated picture of what we see as the most common constraints, and maybe some that haven't been mentioned, and we'll certainly respond to Patricia. I mean, access to finance clearly comes as the number one, just because such a huge gap of $300 billion per year in credit to women. And it is, as Patricia said, it is not just loans. Our traditional banking of women on women program was primarily dedicated to loans, on lending through local financial institutions, who we would then train to on-lend to women, about 40 of them. But it's loans, it's equity as well, capital, especially the startup capital. So the V5 will have a component of blended finance, which will allow us to provide loans to local financial institutions at lower rates, so that when they on-lend, those rates can be beneficial for the ultimate user. So that's one difference from what we have been doing so far. And the second one is we will have a mechanism to provide seed capital to women entrepreneurs in addition to technical assistance. So access to finance, debt, equity, clearly a big issue. A no collateral question is always the reason really why debt is so hard to access. I think that the other most common issue is, or barrier is skills, know-how. And because you can get, as Patricia said, you can get a loan, but if you don't know how to run your business, how to hire good skills, how to grow your company, how to deal with legal and accounting issues, you will not be successful. And of course, that would be a concern for the banks. So we are also a bank, and we realized in addition to financing entrepreneurs through local financial institutions, we also need to build capacity, both of those local financial institutions so that they know how to finance women, as well as women themselves on the ground. These two barriers are most prominent. And maybe just briefly to touch on others, also mentioned to some extent, networks for women are smaller because women are less mobile than men, so there is less peer-to-peer learning. Technology, we look at technology as an opportunity, but it's also a constraint because 1.7 billion of women do not have access to mobile phone, which practically makes it very hard to be included in the economy, and of course makes it harder to get access to finance. Childcare solutions, Patricia mentioned, simply by not having childcare solutions, women will not work. Women will not want to have businesses. And then one issue or one barrier that hasn't been mentioned, but we see it in some countries, is sexual violence against women, especially women traders who have to cross borders and what they experience there. So this kind of gives us a kind of whole range.
There's a lot of
barriers.
Yes.
And we often talk about access to finance, but it's all of the above. That's a constraint for women entrepreneurs.
Did you want to make any more comments about her concerns, or?
As I said, Wi-Fi in the past, and especially in countries that are perceived as high risk, it's quite reasonable for us as a bank as well to expect that when you lend funds that you will actually get them back. I mean, it's just a simple requirement. To do so, I think banks also price their risk. And therefore, sometimes, even if you have access to finance, it is actually expensive to borrow. So what we are trying to address is both the underlying constraints in the sector, in the country, starting from the regulatory policies, right? But also now through V5, use some blended finance instruments to make it more affordable for women to borrow and give some precious seed capital and equity to those women, because it has to be equity and that plus the knowledge or building capacity advisory services. So we're quite hopeful. I also wanted to say, as much as we have high hopes, WeFi is going to allow us maybe to support or to finance around 1 billion plus to a number of women entrepreneurs, but that's still a drop in the bucket in terms of the huge challenge that we have, which is $300 billion per year of credit gap for women.
And you're hoping that that WeFi program will act as a magnet for other institutions too.
And I wanted to say is that the essence of this program is, and maybe I should explain it here at this point, is that you use concessional funds generously provided by governments such as Japan and the US, 340 million for now, but we hope that that can grow. That's a kind of tranche one that allows us to take more risks, to provide better rates, to take more risks also through equity and low price debts, and provide technical assistance. So that's what that bucket will allow us to do, so that we can structure bankable transactions for ourselves, again, as a development bank, with local financial institutions, and mobilize more commercial financing. So we're hoping that the initial $340 million will be multiplied 5 times once we deal with the underlying risks to unlock that opportunity. opportunity. And if as a model or a mechanism that works, I don't see why a billion plus could not turn into billions, because we can then bring others, other MDBs, even private sector, maybe institutional investors as well, once we show that this is possible.
Very exciting. Yajima-san, do you want to explain some of the barriers you may have faced in your startup?
Hi. I stated a little bit before, I was a student, I was a female, and I didn't experience any discrimination against female entrepreneur or being a student. So I was listening to your experience and the situation in other developing countries. I think Japan has greatly changed, especially 20, 30 years. Japan became the country which actually foster the youth and also the women to start businesses. Tokyo Metropolitan Government started the contest for business, and I won that contest, so that I got the business startup, and also I got the proposal from the bank to get a loan because I won that contest. And also, even after I started my business, I was awarded by a lot of prize. And also, I won at the JBIC Women's Program, and I got the 20 million yen of grant, and so that's why I could invest into these programs. So there are many colors of money. Transparency is my own money, and also these white companies which provided from the banks and then others, even though I command these monies, then these are called white money, and there are a few other types of money that I cannot really control. But in Japan, for young people to start their own businesses, the financing method is rather limited in Japan. Usually you have to borrow from a bank. Young people don't have their own money, so they aim for IPO and do the exit. So if you are aiming for IPO, then there are many people asking for the investment because they are going to do the IPO for quite a long time. And it is very difficult to come up with the long-term view. From the beginning, I announced that I'm not going to list my company, no IPO. First 10 years, I don't really worry about the financial balance. I just want to communicate Japanese tradition to the younger generation. That is the core of my business. I don't look at the finance. So even though I get the finance from various institutions, that my business model is that the just solely on the value. So I'm 29-year-old, 7th into my business, and of course it's not easy because these white money, gaining a white money is very important, and also I did my best to do it. But young people, many of them are starting IT startup. And in case of IT startup, they really have to look for short-term return. And 3 years, 5 years, very short-term return on investment. Unless they come up with these short-term return on investment, they cannot get the capital. But 4 years ago, venture philanthropy organization was created in Japan. So I think that this gives a very impactful for the young people's startup. Many entrepreneurs do not know about this venture philanthropy organization. So, but finance procurement should be diversified in Japan too, so that you can have a diversity in a business model too, because you don't have to have a short-term return on investment. And like my business, the successing the tradition to the younger generation, and the real value of the business can be emphasized by the entrepreneurs rather than just looking for the ROI. So we have to increase the varieties of businesses. So if we can do that, the entrepreneur's role is going to be more diversified and be more impactful for the society.
I'm curious, what did your parents say when you said at 22 years old and as a student, I want to start my own company? Were they for or against or?
My mother initially said that you can graduate university only once. Maybe you can't understand this if you're not from Japan. There is a myth of fresh from university. Unless you join company fresh from university, you cannot be employed with good company. So don't miss. That was my mother's advice. You can be fresh from university only once in your life. So I said to her, it may be true, but I don't want to stick to being my freshness from the college, but I have something that I want to invest whole of my life, so I want to stick to this one, and I don't want want your financial burden, so please allow me to do this. So I asked my mother to accept that, and I was a graduate school student as well by borrowing a scholarship. And I left home, and I was totally independent financially from my mother. And she said, okay, then just go ahead. Good luck. That was what she said. But according to some friends, entrepreneurs, they actually created their company without letting their parents know about that. So after setting up a company, the parents might have noticed. Sometimes the entrepreneur come up with a media coverage, and then their parents would discover that. Anyway, parents are thinking that the entrepreneurship is a very risky exercise, but having access to capital, if I can have an access to capital, then I would say risk can be very low. Well, being an entrepreneur, I think is a low risk for women because I can control my time for work. Everything over 24 hours can be my time. So if I want to get married and to raise a child, I think I can manage that. So I think entrepreneurship may be a low-risk business for women where they can make money and being in control for their life and work.
But I am going to ask each of you one last question. There are two parts to the question. One, you talked about the obstacles you faced. If there's one thing that the government or international organizations could do, what is that? And number two, just a message for the audience. I see a lot of young women here and young men, but who might be thinking, hey, I want to do a startup or start my own business. What advice do you have? But very quickly, those two things. Suzy?
Well, what I see for the government is to really support the program on, because it has to be an affirmative policy to help women more jump into entrepreneur world or become a big contributor on businesses and help the economy moving faster. So this affirmative policy need a drive from a leader who not only do but need care. Without the care and the passions, the movements of an affirmative program or policy will not take place faster. So you need a passionate leader, you need a leader who not only do the things but also care, because with that can make the breakthrough. The second, encourage or educate the society, the people from the education system, the tutoring, mentoring, that women, men are both the same. They can be contribute to each other on the society. And one thing that actually probably we also have to start to introduce to the society that women could do things better and more more, how you call it, but they can do more variety of things. The creativity it's more. Yes, in certain limit, it's different strength than a man has, but a woman could do also the better advantages with being woman. So, and I think that's very important to educate the society. The second, for the woman itself, is liberating yourself to your disadvantage of being woman. So just don't think that because you're woman, you have such limitations to do things. That's, I think, it's important. Thank you.
Great. Kaori?
All right. For the government, just two things. That one is like create policies accessible for working women and entrepreneurs. And then also that they keep announcing and talking about these issues, that when the government really speaking out, like the Prime Minister is talking about this women, the mixed and entrepreneurship and having this event, is very powerful. So that I would like the government to keep doing that. The message for the women at this place is, or entrepreneurs, is keep supporting each other, and then the work for the positive impact to the society. And for their supporters, male and other supporters, do not just giving them applause or hugs or whatever, but buy their services. Like for the most greatest support for the entrepreneurs is increasing the sales, so that if you really would like to support women entrepreneurs, buy their products and then buy their services.
Great. 미영?
네. 제가 최근에 Recently, there is a report released in Korea. There was a very interesting result appeared. There is a boom for entrepreneurship, and there are many supports being created for entrepreneurs. These are all welcoming situation, but this is also a reflection of current sad Korean situation where employment is very hard to find and the employment situation is very tough. And therefore, government is now leading people to set up their own companies. But against the backdrops of changing society, we can identify brand new area for businesses where entrepreneurs can create new market that it did not exist before, or innovate the market with unprecedented manner. I think this is where young entrepreneurs can be very variable. The reasons for setting up company for women and men were studied, and men set up their own companies. According to the survey results, is that they want to make money, they want to be rich, and they have desire to have control or power. But as opposed to that, women set up a company to realize their potential. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, innovation is quite important, as everyone says, but one of the way to express innovation is the level of realization of full potential into the society. So by creating a company, women can exercise fully their potential. So I think this is a trend that is happening. And also, as all the panel members are here and also audience are here, many people are more interested in social entrepreneurship. More young women are interested in social entrepreneurship, which gives us hope. But in order for them to grow, we need to have gender equal opportunities and also gender equal access to resource. We need to guarantee those opportunities. And also, we need to have a system in place to evaluate impact created by social enterprises. And
we are seeing more entrepreneurs getting investment. But if we want to have investment and approaching financial institutions for investment, investors do not really evaluate the growth potential very fairly, or financial standing of the entrepreneurs are being fairly evaluated, and therefore entrepreneurs are having hard time getting investment. There's a social impact fund which can evaluate the social enterprises very fairly, and that's what the Korean government is now trying to establish. So if all these problems can be solved, I think more younger people will set up their own company.
Thank you. I believe that the question was about what could government and organization actually do more.
And then a message to the audience.
Yes. And well, I think what government and organization can do more is disseminating information, very important, about what can be done.
Mm-hmm.
And also I would say that we need to, that's what I'm aiming to do, by the way, it's to have this business center. Overseas, they like to call it incubator. It's a new word, having incubators, but I think we need to have centers where actually people can go, might be here in Japan, where people can go and gather information, which is something I've never had when I was starting the business. How do you do? What are your advantages? Where can you go and ask for something? Are there very specific advantages for women, for young women? Which bank deals with what, you know? And that is something that still doesn't exist where I am, and I don't really know about this, that you have this type of center. And I'm also taking the opportunity, because there's something that's not said so far, and I'm looking at all the Japanese in the room, because we are in Japan. Japan is actually the bigger donor in Africa. You know, that's something that's not known, that's not enough known, and I salute all of you, because basically you are the taxpayers, so that's very important to say. And that's why I'm often in Japan, because of that too. And, but it's extremely important to actually mention that, there are some countries that support more, that are more generous, that are bigger donors, because we need it, obviously we need it. And if I had to say a last word to any entrepreneur, man, woman, young, whatever, I would just say go for it. You see, there are always going to be challenges, whatever the challenges are. Like I said, from a developed world, there are some challenges. From an emerging world, there are some challenges. There are always going to be challenges, but I think you just have to go for it, you know, and you will create something. I mean, being an entrepreneur, it's one thing to fulfill something. So just go for the idea, and yes, it's not going to be perfect. Yes, you will miss out. Yes, you can do better, but I truly believe that the will that you have to reach the goal will make you go further, and the rest will be fixed as you go, I think.
And see failure as an opportunity, right, to move ahead.
Thank God there are failures, because otherwise it wouldn't even be fun. You see, it's out of the failure that you actually learn, and failures are extremely important, and it's important to just accept it, not to think I failed, so it means no, it's just part of it, and you actually learn more, strange enough, more from the failure than just success. So it's extremely important, but I'll just say go for it. You know, the world is there, the world is out there. There are plenty niche markets that are still, and everywhere in the world, not only in Africa, but everywhere in the world, there's still many opportunities, and I think we just should go for it.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Thank you. Nina?
Thank you. I agree with Patricia that international financial institutions such as IFC can help share knowledge, because many of us have either regional or global presence, and it's important to know what works well and what doesn't, so that we can replicate the successes and avoid failures. Convening role is also very important, where we convene others to engage in discussions like today as well. And one of the convening ways for IFC is the Global Banking Alliance for Women, where we have banks talking to each other and mentoring each other on what works, what doesn't. I also see a role of institutions like IFC to bring the public and private solutions together to integrate what the governments need to do and what the private sector needs to do. I spoke about the instruments that we can deploy through private sector, especially the local financial institutions, and I also spoke about building their own capacity to segment the women market and to tailor their products to those women. We can help them learn how to do that, again, from that global experience, and couple that with the financial instruments, both debt and equity. But the governments, we didn't talk too much about the governments, but they have a very, very significant role to play. And it is on some of the key regulatory aspects, especially women owning collateral and on mobile movable collateral registries, because we heard a little bit about alternative ways to secure a loan, which comes from movables, and I think the countries where that's not possible cannot even exploit that solution. So it's around the assets and movable collateral registries. But I also understand that many countries, 90 apparently, from the Women Banking in the Law analysis, have discriminatory laws. I mean, it's a lot of countries who discriminate against women. And I think countries, governments have to remove those discriminatory laws. Some of them are for women to work, they need the permission of their husband. I mean, it's a basic thing that should be removed, or women being banned from working in certain industries. So big role for the governments and for institutions like ours. We are multilateral, we are owned by the governments, but work with the private sector. IFC works with the private sector to connect the two. And for the women in the audience and those of you who plan to grow your businesses or set up your businesses, I hope that you have been inspired throughout these last 3 days and with these phenomenal women entrepreneurs on this panel, that everything is possible when you have a good idea. And as a banker, my message to you is have also a good business plan and don't worry about access to finance.
Thank you. じゃあ、矢島さん。
私は、
Well, in my case, I have 3 requests to the government. First one is about the marriage system. First of all, I hope that government will approve the wife can maintain their last name. They usually start a business with maiden name, but when they married, mostly they start carrying the husband's name. But your name legally changed, and then there were so many documents you have to go through, contracts and a bank and everything you have to go through, changing my last name. And that's very cumbersome work. So either wife or husband have to change their last name. That's really suppress the growth of the entrepreneurship, so that probably men wouldn't understand this meaning so much, but many of the women's entrepreneurs feel the burden because they have to change their last name. I hope before I get married, the government will approve that the woman can keep their maiden name after they marry. Second one is that whether it is a man and a woman, this is the hope is that please reduce corporate tax. Because we are earning so much money with great effort. Of course, we want to pay tax, but to stimulate the growth of the company, then at the end, the corporate tax will increase. At the end, we can pay more corporate tax. So I hope that the first several years of a startup, please make the corporate tax lower than the full-fledged company. I mentioned this several times to the government, but reduce the corporate tax overall, or just for the early stage entrepreneur SMEs, please reduce the corporate tax. And also some of the venture startup companies, they go abroad because too much high corporate tax. And the third one is the education for the children about entrepreneurship. I also visit the primary school, junior high, and also high school. That's what to be the entrepreneurs. And but I always careful that I'm not saying that everybody should start a business. Like everyone becomes the entrepreneur, then it's going to be chaotic. So that entrepreneurship spirit is very important. So you have to have an entrepreneurship spirit, and yet you can work at a company or you can work in anywhere. So it's wonderful to be a company's employee. It's wonderful to be a housewife too, but you have to have an entrepreneurship spirit. You have to actively live your life. And that is the most important spirit that you have to teach during the education system. Lastly, I would like to give a message to the audience. In front of you, the things that you think that you have to change this or improve this, please try to improve it yourself. When I was a student, I never had a business. I never studied about economy, but still, I started a business, and then after 7 years, now I'm speaking in front of you because one thing I always cherish the most, that is the three-party happy business model. I'm happy, then the counterpart is happy, and also society is also benefiting from my business. So that if you create something happiness for something, then the people always need it. So three-party happiness. So no one will become sad or unhappy because of your business. So you have to make sure your business is making society happy and also business partner happy. As long as you keep that promise, then the local community and then global community will really help those startups. And I'm in process of developing. I want to work together with you, and I want to improve the societies, and our next generation would be happier than us.
Thank you very much. So I think we have a lot of great tips from the panel. We need more mentoring. We need women to liberate themselves from the perception that they're women and they can't match the abilities of the men. Entrepreneurship is actually a low-risk option in life, not a high-risk one. We need to educate society about entrepreneurial spirit. We definitely need to simply go for it and grasp our dreams. And to kind of piggyback off of what Ivanka said earlier, I hope when my daughter, who is 17, grows up to become a young adult, that we're not having a panel on women entrepreneurs, but we can have a panel simply about entrepreneurs. Please join me in thanking the wonderful panelists today.
Members of the panel, thank you very much. Ms. Sushi Pujiatuti from Indonesia, Minister of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, Republic of Indonesia, and Ms. Kaori Sasaki, Founder and CEO of Unical International and E-Women, and from Korea, Myeon Lee, CEO of Fair Trade Korea, and from Patricia Viringa Vizquez, Founder and CEO of the WAW Factory from Congo, Republic of Congo, and from Ms. Nena Stokovic, Vice President of IFC, and Ms. Rika Yojima, Founder and CEO of Weru Company, and as moderator, Ms. Kathy Matsui, Vice Chair at Goldman Sachs Japan. Thank you very much.